are you? It's great to see you. I'm Josh Razauskas, returning here to my movies and TV essays and review channel to talk to you about my favorite franchise. Because for the first time in a long time, there's something exciting and relevant to talk about in the world of Harry Potter. As Max, the upcoming combined streaming service of HBO Max and Discovery Plus, owned by newly merged parent company Warner Brothers Discovery, announced that they are going to be doing a Harry Potter TV series. And that this TV series will have a 10 plus year plan behind it, and that it will be the most faithful adaptation to the books we've ever seen. As hardcore Harry Potter fans will be the first to tell you that as good as the movies that we have are, there were a lot that had to be cut out due to the time constraints of the film's runtime. However, just saying that is one thing. Being able to execute it is another. And in my mind, there are a few things that stand out, like a bull running toward the red Toro blankets that must need to be done in order to justify the experience of this series and to make its claims truthful. Let's begin at the beginning by talking about making characters their real selves. Ron Weasley, Hermione Granger, Ginny Weasley. What do these three have in common besides two of them in the franchise ending up getting married at the end and two of them being brother and sister? Book fans will tell you that these three characters, while played wonderfully by Rupert Grint, Emma Watson, and Bonnie Wright, were not true to how they were presented in the books. Each character had a vastly different personality. Some character traits were even given from one of these characters to another, and most importantly of all, the romantic relationship between Ginny and Harry felt very forced in the movies, as opposed to if Ginny was her true self, that would not have been the case. So let's break each one of these down. First of all, Hermione. Hermione, many people would say her first problem in the movies is that Emma Watson is just too beautiful. And yes, in the case of Harry Potter, that is a thing that is a reality. Because the way that Hermione Granger is described in the books, and the reason that her moment in the Yule Ball in Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire is such a big deal when she comes down the stairs in that beautiful dress after that makeover, is because she was what we like to call a plain girl. A girl who was not about beauty, and a girl who had buck teeth, and a girl who just was about smarts before anything else. And that's how she was seen by everyone around her. So you need to be able to maintain that appearance somehow. Now, I know that this is Hollywood, and therefore I'm not naive. They're not going to hire a quote-unquote not good looking person. But they can do some things, I believe, with prosthetics or really drive home that personality to really make Hermione feel more like Hermione. And for Hermione, it doesn't end with accuracy to her looks either. They really have to drive home her inability to see past her own smartness and the way that she puts herself up on another level when it compares to other witches and wizards. That's something that the films did not do a good job of allowing us to see the growth in Hermione as a person. And that is something that's vital for the existence of this TV series. Which brings us on to Ron Weasley, who, unlike the movies would have you believe, is not the most inept, least important, and not as smart of the main trio. Ron is a very vital cog in the success of the defeat of Voldemort, and him standing up to Voldemort isn't something that should have surprised Hermione the way it does in the Deathly Hallows film version. Ron instead is the character that not only is the first friend of Harry Potter as he navigates this new wizarding world that he's been thrust in and told that he is the savior of, but he's also a conduit to Hermione as well. Because even though she's very bright, very smart, she's still Muggle-born, and she has not spent her entire life in the Wizarding world as Ron has. Ron is the only member of this trio to have that distinction. So make Ron forceful, make Ron smart, and make Ron competent, because that is who Ron Weasley really is. And finally, we have Ginny. Ginny Weasley is smart, she's driven, she doesn't take any guff, and she knows what she wants. She is her mother, Molly Weasley's daughter through and through. Yes, as the movies will show, she did have an innocent schoolgirl crush on Harry that was unreciprocated till year 6. However, that doesn't make her a character that's just suddenly dropped into the main story as a love interest for no reason. It's obvious why Harry, why Dean, or anyone else would fall for Ginny Weasley. She is the epitome of what makes the Weasleys such a strong family. And it's important that the Ginny Weasley we see in the TV series is her true self. Which leads me on to point number 2. Because in order to give characters their real personality, it means something very important must happen throughout the entirety of the series. And that is sweat the small stuff. As opposed to what the saying usually is, in this case, you very much want to sweat the small stuff, because the small stuff is what makes the bigger ending that much more relevant. When we see things like Vernon Dursley as a character hating the husband of his wife's sister because he always believed that James Potter never had to work in the way that a muggle would work. And he always believed that James Potter never had to earn anything in life. It further justifies the horribleness and the essential slavery that young Harry Potter is put through by his relatives. When we see things like Harry receiving his very first birthday presents from his dear friends, we see how the smallest gestures in life can shape who you are as a person from now until when you face your inevitable end. When we see things like Hermione Granger forming Spew to stand up for the well-being of elves and to free house elves from slavery when they themselves have only lived that way and therefore do not see the way that they live as being slaves, we see why Hermione is able to help Harry and Ron defeat Voldemort. We see why Harry and Ron are so dependent upon her. And we learn why it's so easy for Ron to fall in love and marry her. Because she is not just the smartest witch of her age because of intellect. She is the smartest witch of her age because of her morality. When we see things like the inclusion of Peeves the poltergeist, we see how just one influence in life can sometimes define how we look at certain aspects of it. Would Weasley's witches and weasels exist without Peeves encouraging Fred and George at every turn to school? There's no way to know that because the two were integral to one another. They were one in the same. You can't have one without the other. When we see things like deepening the revelation of the relationship between Albus Dumbledore and Gellert Grindelwald, and what happened as a result of that relationship that caused the loss of Ariana Dumbledore herself, we see that Dumbledore is not this sorcerer who is above all and believes he can do no wrong and is the best wizard of all time. Rather, Albus is a flawed man, a hurt man, and a man who struggled his whole life just to correct one mistake. A mistake that, whether or not it ended up being true or not, in the end, he believed he exacerbated the cause of. And when we see things like flashbacks of the lives of the adults of our main core characters, the Marauders, James, Lupin, Peter, and Sirius, when we see the relationship between Snape and Lily, we will learn what defines these characters and makes them who we all know and love them to be, and makes their fate and their ultimate decisions in life ones that make sense and ones that feel true to who they were always going to be. And finally, don't add content for the sake of adding content. Max, knowing that they're going to get a 10 plus year run to tell this story, may entice them to want to add a lot of material. And that is something that, yes, they're going to have to do, because no adaptation, as we've seen from The Last of Us, even, can be extremely successful without a little bit of leeway from its source material. However, there's a difference between that and doing that instead of putting in core pieces of the story. If you add Ron and Hermione playing the piano together, instead of lingering on the effects of the Horcrux and what went down with Ron Weasley and Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, that's a bad thing. And the movies have shown us just that. If you don't spend the right amount of time with a character, then when that character dies, his impact and his importance is not there and feels far more lessened. Honestly, the list, like this, could go on and on, but I don't want to make a 45-minute video. But the point is, as I mentioned at the beginning of this segment, you have to sweat the small stuff. You have to get every detail right. Otherwise, fans will be disappointed again, and the existence of this series, in the end, won't be that justified. So, Harry Potter Nation, let me know what you thought about my thoughts. Let me know of anything you think I might have left out. And maybe before we hear about the beginning of this series officially, I will make another video. Perhaps it is time to read the books yet again and break down each book and go book by book, detail by detail of things that now need to be seen in this TV series. All of that will be determined by your feedback with this video. Lastly, if it's not obvious by now, by my nature, I am a true Harry Potter fan. This video and any subsequent video I do on the franchise is simply that. It's about the franchise. It's not about the actions of the author or condoning them. This is a safe place for everyone. And if you want to let your own views now be tainted towards your love of these stories, this is not the place for you. And if I see those kind of comments down below in this video, you will be permanently banned from my channel. I have cerebral palsy. I know what it means to be judged unfairly or to have decisions made about you before anyone gets a chance to know who you really are. And I will not stand for that with my content here, with my content on JR Sports, as I pursue my passion and love of sports on my other channel, or on any of my social media. So, I hope you will embrace that, and I hope you thoroughly enjoyed this video. In the next video you see from me, I will be talking to you about Mighty Morphin Power Rangers once and always. Was the 30th anniversary of the Power Rangers done right, or was it more phenomenally disappointing? Stay tuned to find out. And as I mentioned, if you're a sports fan, I now have a sports channel here on YouTube, JR Sports. You can find the link for that in the description box down below, or if the system will allow me to do so, I will put a card inside this video as well. Please subscribe and support me talking about my other passions as well. And remember that life is only as good as what you make it. So make the choice to go out and do something great today.